Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Morning. Happy Sunday. Today is June 7th. You all know what that means, right?
No.
Neither do I. I was just curious if y'all knew. I don't know if there's anything significant. Just thought I'd announce that. It's June 7th. Okay. Well, let me get organized here. So this morning I'm going to be talking about divine confidence. Put my phone on do not disturb. Sorry. Divine confidence. There's a lot that fascinates me about God. And one thing that I've always kind of thought about as I read the Bible, as I learn about Him, I really try to pay attention to who He is as a person. You know, like trying to get to know Him as best as I can. I mean, He's God, but He calls us His friend, and so there's a propensity, ability, a space for us to kind of get to know Him as a person. And if I'm going to dedicate my life to someone that I know who loves me and is who God is, I really want to get to know that person. I really want to get to know what is important to Him, what makes Him tick. You know, because if we are designed in His image, then I can kind of conclude that God operates similarly to us. And what I mean by that is there are things that He cares about. There are people and things that He loves. There are things that He finds beautiful. And there are things that He does not like, right? Like in just the general concept. And as you learn about who God is through the Bible, you see those types of things come out of Him, and it shows His personality. And so you start to kind of get a feel for who He is as a person, right? Like you start to get to know Him. And really that not only solidifies itself, but it really expands the more that you walk with Him, the more that you actually say, okay, I'm going to align my heart to His will and not mine. I'm going to walk every day and try to, talk and act and do all the things that God has called me to do. Like as you do that, you actually get to know Him even more. Because through that journey and that process, He will start to do things inside of you that helps you line up more with Him. So I'm kind of going in like a random circle here, and it all is going to tie together. But I wanted to preface this morning with that, because most of what I'm going to talk about today is really just a journey that I was kind of on for like 2 weeks now when the Lord spoke something to me. And it was really interesting as He said what He said. I just started thinking I couldn't help but just sit there and think like, wow, how is it that this happens? Why is He like that? You know, I've said it several times as I preach. Like I'm like that 3-year-old by God's side, just like, why, God, why? You know, and I can't stop asking the question why. I want to know why He is the way He is. I want to know why He operates the way He does. I want to know why He wants us to operate a certain way, not because I'm in my, terrible twos and just trying to be difficult, but because the more I understand, the better I can carry that out. You know, the old school way of working at a job, you do what I tell you because I'm your supervisor, because I told you to do it. You don't ask questions, just go do your job. But that doesn't work anymore. You can't just tell an employee nowadays, well, go do this. And they say, why? You can't answer them with just because I said so. You need to go do that because that's what I'm telling you to do and I'm the boss. And if you don't like it, tough, just go do it. No, that's not how that works. And there's a good reason why that is the way it is. It's not because this new generation is difficult and because they want to question everything. They are that way a little bit. I mean, there's no question about that. But they're part of the information age. They are a generation of information. They want to know things. You know, when I was a kid, I remember wanting to know some random fact. Just Think of some random fact. How did they do this in the 1600s, in the 1200s, right? You know how long it would take you to find that information? You'd have to go to the library. You'd have to pull out your encyclopedia if you had one. We had a good set of encyclopedias at my house. It was on our bookshelf. You want to know something? Go find the book that might have it, and maybe it doesn't have it. But I remember going on information journeys as a child in the late 80s and early 90s of trying to find information. And it was like true, straight up research. I'm like an 8-year-old searching through books trying to find some stupid answer to some stupid question that nobody cares about. But that's how we had to do it. And so it was a lot harder to come across information. It's not good, bad, it's just different. And so this generation nowadays, they're a lot more prone to like, well, what does this mean? And then they put it in the internet. They get their little search on and they find the information. So you connect that with the workforce, and now all of a sudden you have a generation of people who want to understand. And that's really more what it's about. If I'm going to ask you to do something as your supervisor in a job nowadays, I'm going to want you to understand so that as you understand the why, you can catch on to where we're trying to go and be part of that, right? And the more we understand as people, the more we understand what we're doing and why we're doing it, it's so much easier for us to connect to that. So now bring that back to your faith. The more you understand who God is and what He's doing and why He's doing it, the easier it is for you to catch that fire. Because ultimately, God throws it out there, but we got to catch it. We got to catch that fire in our life. You can sing hallelujah all you want on Sunday morning, but if you go back to whatever you're doing on Monday morning that doesn't line up with God, then it's not for nothing, but you're not going to catch the fire that He's throwing. You're not going to move forward in the way that He wants you to. So, like I said, a couple weeks ago, He spoke some things to me, and I just started really not having trouble, but like trying to understand this thing called divine confidence. And it's God's confidence in us. That one really was hurting my brain. Because I'm like, how could God, being God, be so confident in us as people? If you really understand who God is, and more importantly, who we are as mankind, how could He have confidence in us? I mean, like, that makes no sense to me. So, it really fascinates me why God would have confidence in us. To ask that question, to start to explore that topic of why would He have such confidence in us? And more importantly, why does that matter? It's not some random topic that I bring up so that I can have something to talk about on a Sunday. It's something that God wants to write into our lives, into our hearts, so that we understand what we're doing and why we're doing it with Him, so that we can better catch on to what He's trying to do. I think God knows far better than we do how flawed we really are. Like, it's pretty obvious as you grow up that you see that mankind is pretty flawed. We have a lot of issues as a race, as a people, as a whatever, a creature, a creation. There's a lot of issues with people. A lot. There's a lot of propensity for issues. There's a lot of space in front of us for us to totally screw up in our lives, depending on what happens, right? And not only that, to make it even more interesting, because of how life is orchestrated, we also have the ability to exponentially screw up other people's lives. Not only am I going to cause problems and show my flaws in my life, but then I'm going to sin and I'm going to ruin other people's lives, right? And then they go off and do something, and you know what I'm saying? Exponentially. It just grows and grows and grows and grows. And God knows this way better than we do, how flawed we truly are as people. So why would He have confidence in us? It makes no sense to me. You know, maybe you could try to say, well, we're made in His image, right? So if we're made in His image, then that means that there's got to be something in us that He sees, that He has confidence in, that is part of Him, in His image. But it's still when you look at how we live and how we operate as people, it just trips me out that he would have such confidence in such a fallible creation, right? We have not only the ability, but we have the propensity to fail. So this morning, I just want to take a little journey, just a little one, exploring this topic, just kind of thinking about and looking into why God has confidence in us. And hopefully, I make the point of why that matters. If not, oh well, right? Seems interesting. The first thing I want to ask, and I'm certainly not the first person to think of this, but this whole thing and really everything about our belief begs the question, why us? Why are people so important to God? And even more so, why is mankind so important to where it almost seems like heaven is fighting for us and hell is fighting against us? Who are we? Who are we that we would be the center of this thing in the spiritual realm where we are the object of people's affection, both good and bad? Why us? Little old mankind. It makes no sense. It makes you wonder what's really happening. And I don't necessarily have the answer this morning. Sorry, big letdown. But it should really help us to see that there's probably more going on than we realize. There's probably a lot more going on behind the scenes than we realize. But why are we so important in the story of God that he desperately loves us and wants us to live in redemption, to receive salvation? His love for us is so strong. He wants us to be redeemed. And why are we so important that Satan hates us so much that he wants nothing more than to deceive, to kill, to destroy every human ever created? And he's relentless. He'll stop at nothing. For thousands of years, we see this conundrum going on in the spiritual realm. It's just interesting to me to ask that question and to really stop and think about, why are we so important? And how does that connect with God's confidence in us? He's writing a story really through us. We are his workmanship. We are his story. He's telling a story, and we are the main character of that story. We are the object of his affection. His love for his creation is so deep that we could never even try to understand it. But it's interesting when you try to connect that, when you try to understand it, when you try to ask those questions. So let's go back to the kind of beginning of the story, not the very beginning, but early on in the story of mankind, according to the Bible. We see God having a huge amount of confidence in a man. And there seemingly is no reason why. Like, there's really nothing in this story that about this person that I could see that would really separate him in a way where I would really, really see, like, obviously, because of X, that is Y, right? Like, he did this, and so God has all this confidence in him. There is not that. But yet, when you read about Abraham, and you see the strength and the depth and how much confidence God has in Abraham, it's kind of crazy. That's really the first glimpse that we get to see, I think, holistically, in God having confidence in a person, where he not only wants to walk side by side with Abraham, but he starts to say some things over Abraham that are kind of freaky. They're huge. And so it makes you wonder, like, why did this occur? How did this occur? Where God saw so much potential in Abraham. He's just a simple man who was really just living a simple life. When you really learn about who Abraham was, he was not someone special in what he was doing or anything like that. He was just a man who loved God, who was after God in his life, like walking with God, living a simple life, having a family, wanting a son and having to wait for it, like all these different things happen in his life. But it's very simple, right? And here we see God place so much emphasis on the importance of Abraham's actual role in the overall equation of God's plan. And so there has to be this connection of confidence that God has in Abraham, but he's just a man. He's just a dude. He's, like when I'm at work or when I was in the military and people would get all freaked out about some bigwig coming in, right? Some generals coming in or whoever, the CEOs coming in, and I'm like, what are you worried about? They put their pants on in the morning the exact same way you do. There's no difference. They're just a person. Yeah, they have a high title and a bigger salary and a lot of influence, but that's nothing to get all worked up over, like they're just a person. You don't have to get all like out of your way, but like God is looking at Abraham and he's really seeing him as an integral part of God's plan. Like God sees that, like he's part of my plan. And so there's this confidence in him that to me is just actually astounding, that the God of the universe who knows all, he knows the beginning from the end, like there's so much about him we'll never understand on this side of heaven, and yet he sees Abraham and he has just such confidence in him. In Genesis 18, I'm just going to read a couple scriptures along the way, and there's several, so if you want to write them down and look at it later, I would highly encourage that. And I'll read out of the Passion Translation on this one, because I think it words it really well. But Genesis 18, verses 17 through 19 says, "As they walked, the Lord said, 'Should I really hide from Abraham what I intend to do?'" So here's God asking the question, should I hide from Abraham what I'm about to do? This is God. He doesn't have to clear anything through us. He doesn't have to run it by us. But there's some sort of connection happening between God and Abraham where God feels the need to ask the question, should I hide from Abraham what I intend to do? In other words, I feel like I should tell this person that I love, that I have confidence in, my plans that I'm about to do. That's pretty strong. And then it goes on to say, after all, he, speaking of Abraham, he will become a great and powerful nation, and every nation on earth will seek bliss like his. It is true, I have singled him out as my own, so that he will lead his family and household to follow my ways and live by what is right and just. I will fulfill all promises that I have spoken to him. I don't know about y'all, but that's an enormous amount of confidence that God has from Abraham. This is a simple man of flesh and blood who is fully capable of making the same kinds of mistakes that we can make every day. And yet, he believed that Abraham would become a great and powerful nation. Abraham would become a great and powerful nation. I don't remember reading about him being some great ruler or some great leader. He's just some simple man with a heart after God. And yet God is speaking over him how in the future, I have such confidence in you because I know that you are going to become a great and powerful nation through your offspring, right? This is the same card-carrying free will human being as we are. He still has free will. He still has everything in him that could cause him to ruin this entire plan that God has. And so I find it just very interesting and fascinating that God would have such confidence in Abraham. God knows the beginning from the end. But it's hard for me to just gloss over this part that God is placing this confidence in a human being to be able to do His will, God's will, in order to build a great nation. When we really stop and think about what He's speaking over Abraham's life, that is huge. Something huge is about to spring forth from Abraham's life, and it's God's confidence in him that He's going to do it. Is the part that I'm like, wow, how can He have such confidence in a man to be able to do that? Notice also in God's confidence in Abraham that God feels the need to claim Abraham as one of His own. In that scripture, He is very clear that He is claiming Abraham as one of His own. And so I think when you look at what God is saying in this scripture, what He's presenting to us through these words in how He sees Abraham, I think that we can all agree that God's confidence in Abraham probably must run deeper than what's on the surface. Like I said, there's nothing there that is separating Abraham from other people in a way where we as people would say, oh yeah, I could totally see that happening in this guy. Totally, right? Like his kid's going to be a nation to rule all nations, like, duh, it was Abraham. I saw it all along. No, none of that's happening. But God sees something where He's acting like that. Oh yeah, that's where it is right there. The nation of my people, it's coming from that guy right there. Wow. Like, how is it that He has such confidence in Abraham? And what is it within Abraham that He sees that is giving him this confidence? There must be something within Abraham that is causing God to have such confidence. Because the God of the universe sees all. And He can't be tricked or fooled, right? Like, let's be honest. You can't trick or fool God. There's nothing you could ever do or say or scheme or anything like that to pull a fast one on God. Because He's God. So it's not like Abraham could sit there and try to present himself in a way where he's greater than what he really is. Or put on a show and God be tricked like, oh yeah, he's the guy I thought that was going to do this, but I guess he tricked me. Like, that's not going to happen. So there must be something that God is looking for, that He must have seen in Abraham, inside Abraham, connected with Abraham's heart, that gave him the confidence that Abraham would see this through. Because God really knows what He's looking for in a person in order to have that confidence. He really knows what He's looking for. All the stuff that I've been talking about with Abraham, when it comes to God's confidence in him, are extremely similar in God's views towards Job. God's view towards Job was almost blindly confident. Like when you just read the beginning of the story, it's at the very beginning in chapter 1, where God just starts talking about Job in a way like He just knows. He knows he's going to succeed. He has such confidence in him. It's in verse 8 of chapter 1. God is bragging on Job to Satan. And the Lord said to Satan, have you considered my servant Job, that there is none like him on earth, a blameless and upright man, one who fears God and shuns evil? This is the same God that later spoke through Paul and said, and knows that all mankind falls short of the glory of God. And yet, He is bragging to the enemy about Job. His confidence in Job in that moment was running over. It was in overflow mode. He is so confident that whatever the enemy thinks he can throw, right? And of course, Satan being Satan, as you know the story goes, right? He tries to pull a fast one on God, which is not possible. But in scriptures right after that, Satan's kind of like, oh yeah, of course he'd be successful. Look at the hedge of protection you've built around him. Anyone would be successful. So God's like, oh, okay, I see what you're doing. Well, let me remove that, but don't touch him. And then the story goes on, right? Where that keeps progressing, where God allows a little more, and a little more, and a little more. And yet the whole time, his confidence in Job was shown to be right. Job went through a lot. He really went through a lot. I love reading the book of Job. It's so fascinating to me. Like, that's one of those books of the Bible that I can read from start to finish and just be happy. Like, I could spend a whole Saturday just reading the book of Job because it's so fascinating. Because I'm sitting there thinking, like, how is this guy doing this? How is it that he can go through all of that? So God knows that we fall short of his glory, and yet he's bragging on Job in this situation. His confidence is there, right? God believes in Job's potential so much that he's willing to use Job as part of a bigger issue of showing the enemy the power that rests in a human being that trusts in God. Now all of a sudden, Job is part of a bigger picture that God is trying to display within the universe, within the spiritual realm, that I'll show you what a person can do that trusts in me. I've always wondered why God would feel the need to do that, even though he didn't have to. He didn't have to prove anything to the enemy. He did not. He did not have to go through that with Job, right? When the enemy showed up unexpectedly, it seems like, when you read Job 1, God's kind of like, hey, whoa, where'd you come from, right? He could have just flicked him away. When Satan showed up and he started talking and blah, 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 he could have just flicked Satan away, like, go away. But no, God decided, okay, have you considered, right? He understands what Satan came and said he was doing. He was searching to and fro throughout the earth, right? Doing what Satan does, looking for something he can steal, kill, or destroy. And God, not needing to prove anything, decides, okay, have you considered my servant Job? So clearly there's more going on than God just wanting to entertain the enemy or to even speak to the enemy. There's something more going on there if God would decide to even give the enemy the attention, the time of day, in order to make something happen. Because he's God, after all, right? He doesn't need to prove anything to anyone or any being anything. And yet, he sees fit to make a point by using Job in this situation. So I think maybe all along, it was us that story was for. It wasn't for Satan. As usual, Satan walks right into the trap. He wants to destroy Job and Job's life, right? He's sneaking around, or lurking around, wherever he can get near God, like, hey, come on, give me something. And God says, why don't you look at this guy named Job? And Job goes through this whole fiasco, and then is restored. And God's sovereignty is proved to him. So maybe all along it was us that needed to see what a person dedicated to the Lord is capable of. Maybe that's why that happened. Maybe that's why God entertained that conversation with the enemy. Because he knew that all of mankind would need to see that this is possible. And it all started with what? God's confidence in Job, that Job would be successful. There were no guarantees. This is still a human being, just like I was saying with Abraham. Everything applies to Job. He's still capable of failing. He's still got free will, right? He's a card-carrying, free will human person, right? Like, he can screw this whole thing up. And yet God has extreme confidence that this all is going to work out in the end, to the point where he wants to use this as an example for us, to show us, when you're dedicated to me, life isn't always going to be easy, but I will pull you through. It's a beautiful story with tragedy all along the way. So how many know that God says we are fearfully and wonderfully made? A couple of us know that? Yeah, good. Okay. So where does his confidence derive from? Why would God be so confident in us? We are fearfully and wonderfully made. How could God have such confidence in a people who are born into sin under the tainted blood of Adam? It makes no sense to me. But I don't know much. As I started to look into this, and the Lord was showing me what He wanted to speak this morning, He wanted me to be very clear in saying that God's confidence in us is not based on who we are or what we're capable of. He would know better than anyone else to blindly put trust in creation that has the potential to fail like we do. So He's not just blindly putting confidence in us, thinking like, oh yeah, this is the one, he's the guy, man, I hope he doesn't screw this up. That's not how that works. So how could He be able to have such belief and trust in us if His confidence is not in us based on who we are? Well, His confidence, rather, is based on who we were designed to be and who we were designed after, more importantly. And most importantly, His confidence in us is because of who lives in us. Christ. Christ lives within us, and so He can have the confidence to know what is possible and capable in people. So I have three main points that I want to make this morning when it comes to God's confidence. The first one is God has confidence in us because He is actively working within us to produce both the desire and the ability to do His will. That's the first part of why God has confidence in us, because He's working in us to align us with His will, with His desire. Philippians 2:13, for it is God who works in you both to will and to do for His good pleasure. He works in you. Now, God is not like a puppet master, right? Up there manipulating, trying to control you to do what He wants. That's not what He's talking about. It's about a loving Father trying to teach His children the right way to live. That is Him working in us to do His will, because His will is always the right way to live, the right direction, the right everything. That is what He is working in us to do. So my confidence in my children will grow as I succeed as a father. The better I do as a father, the more my confidence will grow in my children. Because as I am succeeding as an actual father of teaching and mentoring and developing them in their life, going from every different stage of their life into adulthood when I kick them out the door, right? It's all based on how well I do, on how much confidence I can have in their ability. And there's a lot of variables to this, but just stay with me. Like, the overall consensus of what I'm trying to say is that I have to succeed as a father in order to be able to have confidence in my children. Not that they're going to fail or not fail, but in my confidence in, do they know the right path to take that I am teaching them? I have to teach them as a father the right way to live. So the better that I raise my kids and help them to work towards that right way to live, and then them choosing to actually stick with it, that will be the part that I can have confidence in. So God tests us in His ability to work in us, to teach us His ways. That's how He helps us grow. That's how He works in us, is He teaches us as a loving Father His ways. Love, grace, mercy, and of course faith. All these things that represent who God is. As we start to walk with God and we dedicate our hearts to Him, you know, like all throughout my life as a Christian, I've seen a lot of people that believe in God. I've met a lot of people that believe in God. And it seems like every single one is at varying degrees of faith, varying degrees of walking with God. And there's a lot of people who believe in God who are extremely closed off to Him. They'll give Him part of their life, but they won't give Him their whole entire heart. I mean their whole entire heart. Those parts that you don't tell anyone else about, that are secretly hidden away from everything, those got to go to God. You know, like everything within us has to be given over to Him in order for Him to fully work in us, to start to develop us, to start to change the things inside us to line up with His ways. It's like a loving father teaching their children the right way to live. No. We're going to go back in the store and we're going to hand that candy bar that you just stole back to the manager, and we're going to say sorry for stealing. That is me as a father teaching them through humiliation and embarrassment that we don't do this because it's not the right thing to do. So I'm going to make you own up to it. You're going to go stand before another person and admit to them in front of the whole world that you stole a candy bar. Because in that moment, you're going to learn something. You're going to learn, I didn't like that. That wasn't fun. And they're telling me this is wrong. Instinctually, I didn't realize that because I wanted a candy bar and I took it without paying for it as a kid. And then I get brought back and I get put through this whole ordeal. It was not a positive experience, but it was a positive outcome. You guys see the correlation to our lives? As we are that little child in the store, grabbing the candy bar, yes, I did this as a kid, putting it in our jacket and walking out like nothing happened, and then my mother noticing it and knowing full well I don't have a job, so where did I get the money to pay for that? Right? And then asking them just enough questions to be like, I see what happened. I see what happened. And then I go through that experience, right? So in the same way, as I am that little kid in the spirit, stealing a candy bar in the spirit, and God seeing that out of love and justice, He says, I'm going to take you back, and we're going to, through humiliation and love and growth, put you through this experience that you're not going to enjoy, but it will give you the positive outcome that you need in that moment to truly learn your lesson. So my mom was doing a heavenly thing in that moment. She was working through my life like God would work through my life to teach me a lesson that, listen, little chubby guy, this is not how we do things. Yes, I was chubby, sorry. This is not how we do things. And not every kid gets to learn that, right? Some kids never get to learn that lesson from their parents. And frankly, some kids get taught to do stuff like that by their parents. Not all parents are qualified to be parents. But that's not the point. I digress. Okay. So God works in us like that. He sees the ebb and the flow of our daily lives. But what happens? What happens if me as that little 6-year-old or 5-year-old, I don't even know how old I was. What happens if I'm like, no, I'm good, Mom. I don't need to go back in there. I'm good. I got my candy bar. I'm pretty happy. Right? No, we don't need to go talk to that guy. It's not necessary. They don't know now, so is it going to really hurt them? Do we really need to go back in there? I'm good. No, really, I'm good. No, really. Okay, I'm going my own direction. This is not realistic, but this is what happens with us in the Spirit, where God is like, no. We're not going that direction. We're not doing that. You know my word. You know what I represent, and I want you to go back this way. And so that I know that you learned your lesson, I'm not just going to tell you that. I'm going to give you an experience. I'm going to give you a journey by which you will never be the same again, and you will be transformed. The inside of who you are will be renewed because of this experience that I take you through. And some people are open to that, and some people are like, nah, I'm good, God. I'm good. I got my candy bar. I like candy, so I'm just gonna pretend like, you like candy too, and you still love me, right? So, I mean, you are my parent, right? Like, you can't not love me. So I'm just gonna keep going. I'm just gonna do what I want. This should sound familiar. This is how we operate. So, many are called, but few are chosen, and I think that is because the few that are chosen, the ones that really get to walk with God, right? And maybe you even make it in this book we call the Bible, where you're used as the example for all mankind to see. Maybe it's because there was something inside of them that was willing. They were willing to love God in the way He should be loved after He has displayed His love to us. And that is through honor and respect and saying, Lord, I'm going to dedicate everything in my life to you. And I'm going to go in the places that you take me. And I'm going to learn the lessons that you give me. Even if they're hard. Even if I don't like it in the moment, I'm going to stay true to that. So God can build His confidence over time as we respond to Him working in us. He works in us to do His will, but we have to respond to that. And as we do, His confidence grows in us. My second point for today. God has confidence in us because we are His workmanship. We are deliberately created and designed for the good works He already prepared for us. So if you don't line your heart up and your life up with God, you're actually going against the grain, according to the Bible. If He designed us for His will and His purposes, and He predestined you with something that He would call you to do in your life, and you go against that, you're going against the grain. Ephesians 2 verse 10 says, we have become His poetry, a recreated people that will fulfill the destiny He has given each of us. For we are joined to Jesus, the Anointed One. And even before we were born, God planned in advance our destiny and the good works we would do to fulfill it. I think there is so much that we can take from that scripture. Not only did God design us in His image, and He works in us each and every day, He also made it so that the whole thing is rigged for you to be successful because of His design for you in your life. He predestined you to succeed. That's not fair to whoever is opposed to that. I mean, there's probably quite a bit that's opposed to that, but it's just not fair. If God set it up where here's what I've called you to do, and it's your success, and all you have to do is join in that with Him and co-labor with Him, like, that's not fair to whatever is opposed to you. Your life will be successful. Your life will be a blessing because of what God is doing through you. But like Abraham and Job, like I was talking about, something in us, about us, has to line up with God. Our hearts have to line up with God. We are His creation, His poetry, and we are joined to Jesus, and He has created this destiny for our lives. And so our hearts have to align with that. So we allow God to work in us, right? We go back in and we talk to the manager, tell him we stole the candy bar. I'm sorry. And we walk out with our head low, like, man, that was difficult. But then something happens. By the time you get to the car, something in you stirs up. And it's like, wow, I can see why that was the right thing to do. You start to connect with the destiny that God has for you. That's exactly what happened to me. I was so ashamed and humiliated having to go back into that store and hand a stupid candy bar back that I stole and have to go through this whole experience, And of course the manager was gracious. They didn't call the police, right? gave me a couple words of, hey, don't do that again, pretty firm. And then I walk out, my head down, my tail between my legs. I'm walking to the car, I'm worthless. What was I thinking? How dumb could I have been? But literally, before I got to the car, I just started feeling something within me. And granted, I'm like 5 or 6 years old. I just started feeling something rise up within me where I was connecting to that bigger picture, that greater purpose of what I was being taught, of what was happening in that moment. I could feel the transformation of like, okay, I get it. I see why that was the right thing to do. I see why I should have integrity. When people are not looking, I should do the right thing because it matters to a lot of different people and it matters for a lot of different reasons, right? So I started to align my heart, and it was natural. I didn't have to think about it, it just happened. But then from there, I had to grab hold of that. And that's how we align our lives with our destiny. So not only does God try to work within us, and that starts to build his confidence in us, but then we connect through those lessons as we dedicate ourselves to God. We surrender to him, and we start to be transformed. It literally lines us up with his destiny for our life. So maybe you're a person who is in your life and you're kind of struggling with that part of, God, what do you have for me? Where are you going to take me? What do you have for my life? Who do you have for me? All these different things. Well, just keep doing what God's asking you to do. Keep learning those lessons and actually responding the right way like you should. And you will be transformed, and everything will fall into place because he's already pre-written your destiny. You don't have to work to achieve it. You just have to line yourself up with what he's trying to teach you, and that is his ways, right? The right way to live, the love, the honor, the grace, the mercy, all the things that he displays, he wants to build us up in so that we live that right way. And as we align our hearts, we're transformed, we go through this process of him working in us, we start to connect with our destiny, and you can't help but to start to build momentum in that direction. You really do start making, and I have lived this out. I could talk for another hour about that, but I know you guys would not want me to do that. It really does work. The more you dedicate yourself to God, the more you step into what he's trying to do in your heart, and only you know what he's trying to do in your heart. But the more you step into that, the more transformation will be allowed to happen because you're submitting yourself to it. And through that transformation, it's like God is setting us back on track. We get the mulligan. Has anybody ever played golf where you had to do a mulligan, or you really wanted to be able to do a mulligan? I only got to play golf a couple times in my life, mainly when I was younger, because I had a friend that lived on a country club, and so he got access. And most of the time, we just go to the driving range because we played hockey, so we just wanted to slam that ball, man, to see who could hit it the furthest. And of course, he was a goalie, so I always won, right? It was close, but and then we actually went and played a round of golf, and we were in high school, so I don't know how they allowed high schoolers to just do that on their own, because we were not being good little girls and boys. But we were playing golf. And my point to that was to bring up the part that there were a couple shots that I had where I thought of the idea of a mulligan. And I'm like, I'd really like a mulligan. And for those that don't know what a mulligan is, right, in golf, every time you hit the ball, that's a stroke. And you want to have as few of those as possible, right? So the fewer you have, the better. So if you can hit it in a hole-in-one, that's one. Where everyone else hits it 5 times to get it in, now they have 5 and you have 1. You're doing better, right? So a mulligan would say, okay, here's my third shot, and it goes off a tree in the opposite direction into some really thick grass or the water or whatever. There's no way I'm going to be able to fix that without hitting it several times. So a mulligan is to say, let's pretend that shot didn't count, and I get to redo it. So we'll put it back where it was before, and I'll do my third shot again. That's a mulligan. Now, I don't think they do that in the pros, but sometimes in life we want that mulligan from God. We want to say, hey, God, can I have another chance? Let's just pretend like everything that just happened over the last 6 months of my life isn't there. And let me try again. Let me try again. But that's what happens as we align our hearts with God, and our life naturally and our hearts naturally start to align with His destiny for us. There are things in our life where He gives us that mulligan. And He says, I'm going to set you up over here on this path and accelerate you, and we'll just pretend like none of that ever happened, because you're doing exactly what I need you to do, and I need you to get here in this place I've called you, because it affects so many people in a good way. He wants to use us as His vessel for His love. So we have to be willing to line up our hearts in order to reach that destiny that He has called us to. The third and final point on God's confidence is that God has confidence in us because our sufficiency does not come from ourselves, but from Him through Jesus Christ. In 2 Corinthians chapter 3, verses 4 and 5, it says, we carry this confidence in our hearts because of our union with Christ before God. Yet we do not see ourselves as capable enough to do anything in our own strength. For our true competence flows from God's empowering presence. God believes in us and is confident in us because He knows who lives in us. It's not a hard thing to figure out, right? He set things up where Jesus would live in us. He literally is inside of you. He lives inside of you. It is up to you to connect with that, to activate that, to do the things that God wants to do through you. Not through your own strength, but through His strength. Not through your own capability, but through His capability. He connects with us in a way where His divine power and nature starts to flow through us. And we do amazing, wonderful things through Him. And the more we submit to that, and the more we connect with our destiny, then all of a sudden, Jesus starts to shine through us. And we become the city on the hill. That lamp in that dark room. Because darkness is only the absence of light. That's it. It's not a thing. It's just an absence of something. And so, if this room is dark, it's just absent of light. As soon as I add light into it, all of a sudden, everything changes. The whole environment changes because you can see things. You can move about without tripping over chairs or kicking your pinky toe onto a baby swing and almost breaking it. You don't have to do those things when the light is on. So if you're a new father, turn the light on. Jesus wants to shine bright through us. And it is us connecting with Him, allowing Him to work in us and be transformed in order to start going on the path of the destiny, and all of a sudden the light comes into our life. And I'm going to tell you right now, you might not notice it. When this whole thing occurs and God starts having confidence in you, you might not notice it. You might just be going about your daily business, having faith, going to church, connecting with people, loving on people, on and on and on and on and on. And then something happens. Something will break through, and you'll be like, where did this come from? Where did this come from where God is now all of a sudden out of nowhere operating through me in my life? Like, where is this all coming from? And that's because of the consistency that you've shown to where He can start building His confidence in you. That you're operating the way He designed it and what He has called you to do, to where He can start to flow through you. And all of a sudden, lives start to change because of what you're doing. Don't worry, I'm going to land this thing really, really quick here. So the bottom line, the point of today, is that God is confident in us because He designed us, because He works in us, and because we are empowered through Christ in us. Amen. That's why He has such confidence in us as people. Many are called, but few are chosen. So if you want to be able to see the transformation of God happen through your life, where you become a light to this dark world, and to know that the God of the universe has confidence in you, all you have to do is love Him and go the direction that He's taking you. Learn the lessons that He's teaching you. Do the things that He's asking you to do. Connect with Him day in and day out. And watch as your life is completely changed and transformed. I think it is amazing that God has confidence in a fallible creation. We are capable of failing. And yet, we see stories in the Bible, people like Abraham and David and Job and all these people who are called to something greater. Just like so many other people were called. But they were chosen because of how their hearts aligned with God, and that allowed Him to have the confidence that He could have from His design through His power, working through us. And that's it. That's all we have. So I hope that this message blessed y'all.